All right. And welcome back to the Justin Fields podcast.
Let's go.
The amount of comments that we get every time I post a Justin Fields related video is it's pretty impressive. Before I posted the last one, I posted it and I told Jenna, and I was like, "Hey, this is gonna go crazy." And I posted and went to sleep, and then I woke up and it had like 15 comments. I'm like, "What is going on, bro?" Every time, everyone's so angry.
Do you
Yeah,
even
man.
watch ball, bro? Do you even watch ball?
You guys need thicker glasses, apparently.
I've never watched a Cowboys game just because I think you guys can replace Brandon Cook's 600 yards of production he got for you this year.
Oh
Never
man,
watched a Cowboys game.
yeah, it's great. It's the byproduct of doing podcasting and adding your opinion on the internet. So it's fantastic. So we're gonna continue to do it. All
And
right.
you know what? I'm gonna tell you guys, it takes a lot to put stuff out there, knowing that for anything like this to gain traction, you kind of have to be a little behind the scenes for the three viewers, my three favorite people in humanity. Me and Jacob, we agree on a lot of things. So a lot of times we spend a lot of time during the week trying to come up with topics that we can disagree with. That way we can provide discourse around a topic. And it's pretty funny because we both generally don't solidly agree on something and then miss it. Generally, if one of us misses something like he's a tackle, no, he's a guard, or I love Christian Watson, it's because it's something that everybody can disagree on. This Justin Fields thing, neither of us disagree on. I don't think the NFL disagrees on this, but these fans, and it's funny because there's only like 15 of them that pop in the comments. Could you imagine if one of these videos ever goes viral for like 50,000 views and we got like 700 comments?
Trying
I
to
don't know if
filter
I'm
through all
ready
of
for
them,
it.
right? Yeah, no, and it's. I was listening to something a little bit earlier, and he was bringing up the Justin Fields things. He's like, he goes, it seems like Chicago wants Justin Fields. He goes, but not Chicago, the fans. And he goes, and it's all just emotion. That's all it is. He goes, so if you take emotion out of it and like pause for like 30 seconds, I literally had to check my phone for to see if my podcast paused. And I'm like, did it pause right now? And no, it didn't. He's like, okay, now that emotion is out of it, let's talk about it. Dude, I mean, it's right. It is just a full emotional roller coaster with the Fields thing. But moving on, we're going to get onto the show. Stuff we have going on today is we're going to talk about NFL prospects not testing at the combine, mainly the top end guys. T. Higgins, L'Jarius Sneed getting franchise tag and what that means for them. The salary cap increases. Going to talk about AFC and NFC North free agency predictions. And then we have mock draft 1.0 from Mr. Drew himself. All right, so starting off, NFL prospects will not be testing at the combine. Guys like Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Caleb Williams. I mean, it just came out that Caleb Williams was literally just talking about he's not even going to do the medical evals. The top three quarterbacks. So once again, Caleb Williams, we have Jaden Daniels, and Drake May all will not throw as well. So that opens up the door for a lot of other guys. But what does this mean for, is this going to be, I know this has kind of been a trend going on in the league, the top end guys coming into the combine, they won't throw or they won't test or they won't do a handful of things. Is this going to just continue the trend where more first round guys are not going to do things? I mean, they're solidified. A guy like Marvin Harrison Jr., he's solidified. A guy like Caleb Williams, he's solidified. I get it. You don't really have to test. You're probably going to do a lot of your stuff at your pro day, but I mean, it sounds like Marvin Harrison Jr., he might not even do stuff at his pro day either. So what precedent is this really setting, and what does this mean for the other prospects coming in?
I think the tough part about it is, like the Rams, they don't even go. These teams have started to not view the combine as important. And it's kind of like what you and I have said, where I'm going to hold on to these values based off of the plays that I watch these players make in these college football games that I watched and the film that I'm going to look at. Not so much about what I see on the combine, but it's those late round prospects where this stuff is really important. So I'm actually not super upset at the fact that a player like Caleb Williams or whatever doesn't show up to the combine, because we don't need to take the shine off of somebody that we know is going number one or number two. We don't have to take the shine off of the number one wide receiver in the class, the number two wide receiver in the class. It just gives you more of an opportunity to see these fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh round talents. I do think that there's a certain opportunity for a player like JJ McCarthy or a player like Bo Nix or Michael
definitely.
Penix to really come out and set the world on fire. And now you're talking about a player that might be early second round. I know the Seahawks are all over Michael Penix in the second round. You're talking about a player that might go in the second round, might improve his draft stock. And if you're a fringe second round player, you want to go 30th, 31st, 32nd because it gives you that 5th-year option. It gives you the longer contract. It gives you the big payday at the end.
There's going to be a team that jumps into the first round. There's going to be a team that jumps back into the first round for one of those quarterbacks, Bo or Michael.
Absolutely, especially if they show out at the combine. But do we really need to see Caleb Williams go out there?
Right.
Not really.
And the thing is this, especially for Bo, he didn't have the best senior, the Senior Bowl. He didn't have the best Senior Bowl show out. So if he doesn't have a great combine, I mean, this could really lower his draft stock to be a solidified second instead of maybe a late first. And this pushes Michael Penix in front of him. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how that kind of back and forth happens there. The other thing that this kind of puts a shine on is Rome Odunze, the third wide receiver on a lot of people's boards from Washington. He's going to end up going out, and he's slated to go through all the on-field testing this week. So he could really rise his draft stock. I mean, he's pretty much going to be a solidified top 12, 13, 14 pick. In most people's mock drafts, he's a top 10 pick. So for me personally, he's my second wide receiver on my board. But it's really close between Neighbors and Odunze. So again, it kind of opens the door for a lot of these guys to go onto the field and have this opportunity. I mean, just today, we're recording this on February 29th, and the combine already started. And what was that dude's name? Defensive lineman Fisk. I don't know if you saw any of his stuff coming out so far. So you have Byron Murphy, right, who's supposed to be the solidified number one interior defensive lineman. But then you have this guy Fisk who's coming out, and he's trying to solidify himself as like a top end second round pick, maybe even a late first, because all his testing has been off the charts so far today. And, guys like that push themselves in, right? You see a guy like Trayvon Walker who's like, oh, yeah, he probably might be a first round pick. And all of a sudden he tests off the charts and he's the first overall pick in the draft. I'm not saying, obviously, a guy like that, like Fisk, is going to be a first overall pick in the draft. I'm just saying stuff like this happens.
Not this year, he ain't.
Right? So opportunities open up for these guys when others, the top end guys, are not testing. So there's a push and pull there. I don't really mind it too much. I know that there's old heads out there who want to say, I want to see these guys compete. I don't care that you're a top end pick. I want you to compete in these on-field testing. And what some people forget is that's not the point of the combine. The whole point of the combine was medical evals. That was the entire thing. Medical evaluations was the original point of the combine. And there was only like 1 or 2 MRI machines back in the day when they were trying to do the combine testing. And so they literally like, well, since you guys are standing around in a long ass line, why don't we go ahead and just have you guys, I don't know, do these on-field tests. Let's interview you guys. And now it's turned into this entire ordeal that, the combine has turned into nowadays. Now, I think the combine has taken a step back from a couple of years ago. More pro days are more important nowadays. I mean, aren't they putting on like a Big Ten combine instead of having a bunch of different pro days now? So I think the combine's taking a step back, but that was the original point of the combine. It's not for the on-field testing. It's the medical evaluations and the interviews at the end of the day.
Well, I also think that the analytics in football have just gone, we know what is the they have it, but it's the stat that tracks how fast the player's running, whatever that company is called. It's got like green writing on it or whatever, but they know how fast these players are running in the games. They know how many route runs they've run. They put the route trees up after the games and everything. So I remember Zach Wilson's pro day where he did that. He rolled out across his body and flicked that ball down the field, and it went viral everywhere. And it was kind of funny because everybody already knew Zach Wilson was going as the number 2 pick. And I think I saw something today that he's been allowed to request a trade because it's not working out too well for him over there in New York.
It's almost like they couldn't find a trade partner, and they're like, well, can we try to find a trade partner then? So not working out very well. Talking about potential trades, let's move on to the T. Higgins and the L'Jarius Sneed franchise tag stuff. So if the audience did not know, T. Higgins and L'Jarius Sneed were just franchise tagged within the week. T. Higgins a handful of days ago. L'Jarius Sneed was just franchised tagged yesterday, I believe. But starting off with T. Higgins, the franchise tag guarantees him $21.8 million. T. Higgins has already said in the past that he has zero intention on playing under the franchise tag. Higgins and his team rejected an offer from Cincinnati last offseason, confident in the idea that they were going to be able to get a more lucrative offer after his time under Cincinnati. So basically as a free agent. Panthers are a standout for Higgins if not re-signed. There's a lot of whispers right now and I think it's more than whispers. The wind is blowing for the trade market that T. Higgins might end up getting traded. Same thing with L'Jarius Sneed as well. But do you buy into this franchise tag and trade? It's a rarity in the NFL. It doesn't happen a lot. Are we going to see something like that with T. Higgins? A franchise tag and trade?
I think you're going to. You know what? It was a rarity in the NFL a couple years ago was the trade deadline. Nothing ever happened at the trade deadline. And then the Rams were like, we're going to give up all our picks to bring these players in, and they won a Super Bowl. And now the NFL trade deadline is more expensive, more exciting than NBA trade deadline. Sign-in trades happen all the time in the NBA. I think this is definitely something you're going to see because the problem has always been, okay, you're going to trade for Justin Fields. You're going to give up comp for him, and then you have to pay him. So it's like a double whammy. But if they sign T. Higgins to the deal, or they sign him to the franchise tag, and then you trade for him, well, now you've got a whole year to negotiate that contract for him. Or maybe you have the contract pre-negotiated. You know, sometimes free agency hits, and at 12:01 p.m. they already have the deal agreed to, even though there's no tampering and all that stuff. So I definitely think T. Higgins is a interesting case because you got to pay him as a top 10 wide receiver in football. And I don't think that on the Bengals, he can be a top 10 wide receiver in football because you have Jamar Chase. I don't know if you can pay two wide receivers like that. That's the thing that the 49ers have to decide what they're doing if they're going to pay two wide receivers like that. There's really not a team in the NFL that really is paying two marquee wide receivers that much money and a franchise quarterback and a pass rusher. It's just, the salary cap's going up, but there's only so much money.
Yeah, I think that the question is not what his contract value is, because that's a different conversation. And we've talked about a little bit about what T. Higgins could fetch in some of our other free agency predictions of the NFC and AFC East and other ones that we've done as well. So the question is what does T. Higgins actually fetch? Does he fetch a first? Does he fetch a second, multiple seconds? What is T. Higgins' market value as a trade piece? Right. And obviously that's going to kind of vary team by team. I mean, we're talking about a big bodied wide receiver, young, 25 years old, has gone over 1,000 yards multiple times. Is a team like Carolina going to give up a first? Well, I mean, they don't have their first this year, so a future first, or they're going to give up their second, which is the first pick in the second round. So, what are they which is basically a first round pick, damn near, is that first pick in the second round. So is that his top end value, or what are we looking value wise for T. Higgins?
I don't think T. Higgins is worth a first round pick.
It's hard to see him as a first round pick. It's
again, I mean, you already have to pay the guy, because I don't think you're bringing him in unless you can guarantee. You're definitely not giving up a first round pick unless you can guarantee that he's going to re-sign for you, because it's definitely not worth it. But he's had 2,000-yard seasons.
Mm-hmm.
He's got 24 touchdowns in his career. That's 6 a year, and he averages on blind for the viewers. We're talking about like 60 receiving yards a game and a touchdown every 3 games. You're going to give that guy all the money. You're going to give him the bag and trade a first round pick for him. Not to mention that, how good is he really? Like, he's out there with Jamar Chase and Tyler Boyd taking a lot of pressure off of him. Is he ready to be a number 1 wide receiver? Is he ready to be big time?
If you look at his stats too from 2022 and 2021, which is his 2 best seasons and his highest graded seasons as well. I mean, you're looking at top 25 is like your fringe top 20 in some of your stats, top 12 in touchdowns. I mean, you're not looking at anything insane. I mean, with targets, yards, receptions, those are all top. He's in the top 25. But are you trading a first round pick for a top 25 wide receiver? I don't think so. Right? I don't think that's the going market for him. Now, I could see Carolina trading that second round pick, right? I could see that, but past that, I don't think so, dude. I think that's
I
kind of
mean,
where.
T. Higgins was the 45th overall ranked wide receiver by PFF this year. And I know that PFF's not the end all be all, even though a lot of people think it is, but 45th. I just, and that's with those players on that team. That's with, now, yes, I know Joe Burrow was hurt this year. I get it. But Jamar Chase was still rated highly. Tyler Boyd's still doing what he does when he stays healthy. I just, for T. Higgins, can you guarantee me the production? Like, you're kind of paying a guy for what he might be. You're kind of paying a guy for what he might do. Like, we already know what CeeDee Lamb brings to the table. We already know what Brandon Ayuk brings to the table. Like, this is proven value. Like, T. Higgins is kind of like, can he be a top 10 wide receiver? We're going to pay him as a top 10 wide receiver. Can he be a top 10 wide receiver?
Yeah, that's the question. I think someone who doesn't have any questions is L'Jarius Sneed, who also got franchise tagged. The franchise tag is $19.8 million for the star corner, who has had fantastic seasons every single year that he's been in the league so far. I mean, rookie season, super solid. 2022, probably his best year. 2023, was one of the top rated corners in the league, and makes plays in the Super Bowl. I mean, we're talking about a guy who's a proven corner getting franchise tagged. And on top of getting franchise tag in the same day, his agent asks the Chiefs if they can look for a trade partner, and the Chiefs grant it. Right? And now what this means is you don't want to. The last thing I don't want to hear anything about, you don't want to franchise tag Chris Jones. The last thing you want to do is franchise tag Chris Jones, because the franchise tag for an interior defensive lineman is different than Chris Jones' franchise tag. The franchise tag for Chris Jones is $10 million higher than the franchise tag for the typical interior defensive lineman market. So for everyone else, it's one thing. For Chris Jones, it's another, because his salary for last season was a lot higher. So you're not going to franchise tag for $10 million less if you're obviously making a lot more money than that. So the priority for the Chiefs is clearly to work out a long-term deal with Chris Jones and see what we can do with Sneed. If we can't do anything, we're going to move on with it. Right? We've seen them do this with multiple corners now at this point, letting them go, letting them walk, letting them do their thing. The Chiefs have a certain corner type, right? Long, rangy, physical corners. That's their type. Now, the one exception out of all that is Trent McDuffie, who they took in the first round.
Corner, yeah.
Right. That's their one exception, which they took in the first round. Outside of that, like Sneed and these other guys in the past that they've taken that have been really, really good, productive corners, they've taken late round flyers on, who again match their prototypical what they want, and it's worked out for them. So now they're thinking, hey, as long as we have Patrick Mahomes and we have Travis Kelce and we have Chris Jones, I don't care what else happens. Right? We've done it in the past, and we're going to do it again, even though the players seem to think that the owners suck, and that the nutrition sucks, and that their family treatment sucks. And I don't know if you saw that, the NFLPA surveys that came out. Yeah, the Chiefs ranked second to last, only to the Commanders in all categories except for coach. Andy Reid gets the highest coaching grade that you can get. Outside of that, everything else is pretty horrible. So I think there's a pretty good chance that Sneed gets traded. Now, once again, we're asking the question, one, how likely is it that the trade happens? And two, what's the market value for this? Because I think the market value for trading a top flight corner is pretty damn high. I mean, we're talking about I know it's L'Jarius Sneed doesn't have the name value that Jalen Ramsey does, but if you look at the production, it's pretty damn close. Multiple first round picks, Jamal Adams, which again, not a good trade, but fetched multiple first round picks. What are we looking at for Sneed?
I mean, more than what if a team just signs him? You know what I mean? What is his value on the open market? I don't think the Kansas City Chiefs can pay him long term. It's we were just talking about this with the Bengals, how and take out Kansas City's this is how they normally do things. Take that out. The Bengals you can't pay two wide receivers. You can't pay Chase and Higgins. Nobody does that. That's just not something that everybody does. No teams have two corners. except for the Cowboys. The Cowboys had 3 this year, randomly. Most teams don't have that. You have one really good corner. 49ers had Charvarius Ward, and then a whole host of hodgepodge. That's how most teams are. You know what I mean? It was Darrelle Revis and hodgepodge. It's Jalen Ramsey and a bunch of other guys. So to have 2 corners, it's very rare. And I think L'Jarius Sneed is worth number 1 corner money. I think he's going to get number 1 corner money. And I think that you would trade a lot. The Jamal Adams package would seem like a no-brainer. I mean, you did that for a safety, really a linebacker, let's be honest. But I don't remember what the Jalen Ramsey trade compensation was, but Jalen Ramsey was under contract,
I believe. Yeah, that's the difference. Yeah, so it was multiple first and a third or fourth, I believe.
I mean, if you can get L'Jarius Sneed for a first and a third, that seems like a no-brainer.
Oh,
especially if you're a back 20 team, you know what I mean? Like, the 49ers can't keep trading away their first-round picks, but, I'm trying to think of who the Chiefs would want to do business with that's back there. But I'm just going to throw this out there. They would never do this in a million years. Don't lose your mind, viewers. But the Bills, like, to trade their first overall pick and a third overall pick to bring in L'Jarius Sneed, that would be a no-brainer for them, And maybe if it's a high enough first, maybe you don't need to do a third. Maybe you do a first and a fourth because they're not going to pay him anyway. At least I don't think they can. Most of these teams these days believe pass rush first and then corner second. You already have McDuffie, so you got to give the money to Chris Jones.
Yeah, and I think what you want to look at too on top of that is so real quick, a contract projection for L'Jarius Sneed is 4 years, $64 million, $16 million annually per year, $35 million
run that
guaranteed. Right. So that's the common one that I was able to find there. A team I think is likely that could sign, I should say, is a team like the Cardinals. I think are a pretty good candidate, especially since they have 2 first-round picks. What's up?
I said I hope not.
Oh, you hope not?
I hope not.
So they have 2 first-round picks. Right. At the end of the day, they have those 2 first-round picks. They have their high 4th overall. Right. They're not going to trade that away. But I think it's the 25th, 6th, 4th, somewhere around that ballpark range. It's that mid to late 20s. Maybe it's 27th. Maybe that's actually what it is. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. But a point is they do have multiple first-round picks, and they could use a guy like L'Jarius Sneed on their team. I mean, most people could use a guy like L'Jarius Sneed on their team, but they have the compensation to go ahead and move that because they still have a high first, and they can still trade their first and be okay, the other first that they end up having. So I think that's a pretty good place for them to land. Drew obviously doesn't want that to happen, but who knows?
Yeah, and I don't think. I mean, if it's the Cardinals, I think you could do your 2nd-round pick if it's the Cardinals. I don't think it has to be a first-round pick at that point because you're talking about pick 35 at that point for L'Jarius Sneed.
Right.
I just, the more I think about it, I just don't think the Chiefs can pay him. I don't even think they want to franchise tag him. You want that money. You got to extend Chris Jones and you got to go get Calvin Ridley or Mike Evans, I think, which is stupid because they just won a Super Bowl. So the Chiefs don't have to do a goddamn thing except for throw their helmets out on the field and beat the 49ers in the Super Bowl every couple of years. But for building the team, I think that's what you have to do. I think you have to go out and get Mike Evans. You have to go out and get Calvin Ridley. Like, you have to give Patrick Mahomes something to work with so he doesn't have to be Superman every year. Like, dragging the carcasses of the Chiefs. Like, it's LeBron James and the Cavaliers, right? Like, give him something to work with. Give Tom Brady Randy Moss. Give Patrick Mahomes, like, if they're going to win anyway, then I want to see them do something epic. Like, I want to see Patrick Mahomes throw for 60 touchdowns next year. Like, if you're telling me the Chiefs got to win the Super Bowl or be in the Super Bowl next year, then I want to see them do something great. I don't want them to scuffle through the regular season and go 10-6 again and then turn it on in the playoffs. That's boring. I want to see something epic. Like, I want them to do something crazy. Like, get my man Mike Evans 30 touchdown receptions next year. Like, let's just do something nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, if I got to watch it, it might as well be entertaining.
Right. So now moving on, especially everything that we're talking about has big implications with the salary cap. The salary cap has increased and has been not just increased, that was expected, but it was a larger increase than what was initially anticipated. So It was announced that the 2024 salary cap will be $255.4 million. Initial projections in December put the 2024 salary cap in the 240 to 245 ranges. The league's press release said the unprecedented $30 million increase per club in this year's salary cap is the result of the full repayment of all amounts advanced by the clubs and deferred by the players during the COVID pandemic, as well as extraordinary increase in media revenue for the 2024 season. The $30.6 million jump is 13.61% more than the 2023's $224.8 million. The increase is a little bit less than the 2022 when the salary cap rose by 14.8% after the drop in 2021, again, because of the pandemic. So huge implications, obviously, with the salary cap. So we have increased competition and free agency. We have the higher franchise tags. This is huge for teams like the Bills and the Dolphins, which we covered last week for free agency. The Saints, it's huge implication for people who are really negative in that salary cap. It gets them a little bit closer to break even and actually be salary cap compliant. Huge for those teams. Again, and it's still big for the teams that have a ton of salary cap and now they have even more. I think this really puts a big precedent on not really like the lower level players, the guys who are going to get the league minimum anyways. This really says a lot for guys like Jalen Johnson, right? L'Jarius Sneed, Chris Jones, Justin Jefferson, who's going to get a contract extension, right? I mean, it has big implications for guys like those. So Jalen Johnson, just for an example, for the franchise tag, his projection for the franchise tag is 19.8. Same thing as L'Jarius Sneed. It's approximately $1 million more than the original projections. And then if we look at the second franchise tag for those teams, we're looking at closer to $23.7 million for a second franchise tag if they were going to do something like that. For an example, Jair Alexander makes $21 million per year, just to put that in perspective. So 23.7 for a second franchise tag, which is a lot higher than the original projection. So again, big implications for the salary cap increase. Where do you see the most change with this money increase for people?
I just think that you're going to have a couple cap savvy teams this year that are going to just really kind of take advantage of this big jump, like maybe just guarantee a lot of money up front or restructure a lot of, like, the whole thing is backload it, like push it to the end, push it to the end, push it to the end. But with the big jump here, you could really restructure a lot of contracts to pay out this year, you know, especially if you're a team like the Bears, who are not there yet, but are kind of on their way. There's a lot that you can do with the salary cap now, especially with a potential rookie quarterback, where you can sign the marquee free agent and give him a big old fat number right up front, because you're going to eat it this year and move on. And
yep,
I think the salary cap is going to continue to grow. I mean, I don't think it's going to be a 30 million jump next year, but
actually the initial what it was supposed to be is this year was only supposed to be a step, and next year was supposed to be the large jump. So did it flip? Or are we still looking at that? Are we still looking at this year a step and next year being a huge jump? Are we looking at like a $45 million increase, like something crazy next year? Like next year, 2025 was supposed to be like this massive jump from COVID. That was what it was supposed to be. Again, was it just sooner because of the media, like the revenue sharing, or was it actually just, is this still going to happen? So that's the question I have.
I mean, if the NFL keeps generating $11 billion in revenue, then it can be whatever.
Yeah. And again, those big name free agents that are either coming up for an extension. I mean, if we're looking at CeeDee Lamb, Micah Parsons, who are coming up, Dak Prescott coming up just from the Cowboys alone, those guys, it's huge implications for them in the Cowboys and allowing us to actually sign some of these guys to long-term deals, and it makes it a little bit more doable instead of having to maybe choose one guy over another. It just makes it doable for those type of teams again, and it frees up teams like the Vikings to sign Justin Jefferson to a long-term deal now instead of having to wait for it. So I think that's something, again, huge implications for the top end guys, lower end guys. I don't think that they're going to see too much of a difference here.
Yeah, I mean, I think you might see a couple contracts soon. But you know what? I think that NFL teams know a little bit more about what's going on in future salary caps than they give on. So maybe it won't change. Maybe it'll just be business as usual.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. And especially talking about contracts too, this salary cap increases just this week. And then it's reported right now that Chris Jones is supposed to be getting an extension in the realm of 3 years, 85.4, 84.5. One of those numbers are flipped million in total. So that's what he's kind of projected right now. He's expected to sign that extension here in the next week and a half or so. So again, what that means for L'Jarius Sneed and the franchise tag for him, who knows? Again, could be potentially tagged and traded, getting a deal done with another team. But yeah, salary cap increase. Chris Jones is affected. So moving on to the NFC and AFC North free agency predictions. So we are going to be starting off with the AFC, Baltimore Ravens, Browns, Steelers, Bengals, and then moving on to the Lions, Packers, Vikings, and everybody's favorite Bears.
The Bears.
Baltimore Ravens, we're going to go and start off with the AFC conference #1 seed, just not the representative in the Super Bowl. They have $12 million in effective cap space, and I'm going to keep explaining this every single week. Effective cap space is going to be different than their actual cap space. If you look at a place like Over the Cap is going to have them roughly at, if I can find it, I am looking for them at 16.6. Effective cap space, again, is around 12. So again, effective cap space is taking into account signing your rookies after the draft. It's taking that into account. So it's more likely their cap space is $12 million. That's why I say that. Starting off with cut candidates, honestly, I had a really hard time with a lot of these teams, going from the Ravens, Steelers, Bengals. A lot of these teams, I had a really hard time finding a cut candidate. For the Ravens, they're one of those teams. I couldn't really find a cut candidate for them to free up money. Guys who maybe are underplaying their contract right now, I had a hard time. So do you have a cut candidate for this Baltimore Ravens team?
No, I mean, not really. I think the Ravens are one of the really well put together teams right now in the NFL.
Yeah.
I think that our must resign for them is going to be pretty boring also. But I think that the NFL, I struggle a lot with these. I think a lot about the Ravens, the Chiefs, the 49ers, and the Cowboys, because let's take the Chiefs out. We know they need a wide receiver. But the Ravens, Cowboys, and 49ers, they were the badasses in the NFL this year. Super Bowl be damned. What do these teams do to get better this upcoming year? And I've struggled a lot with that, trying to figure out, especially knowing we were going to do the Ravens this week because the Steelers are easy, right? I was just like, man, what can the Ravens really do? What can they bring to the table to significantly upgrade their franchise this year? And I'm just not sure how much there is out there, except for Lamar needs to take a step.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Outside, yeah, I mean, you can't really save a whole lot of money right now if you're the Ravens in terms of cutting people. Now, this isn't a restructure type show. We're not going to talk about restructures or extensions or anything like that. So obviously they can move money around with doing some restructuring or extensions for some of their guys, but cutting, I can't really find it to save them some money so they can go out and go get guys. But again, it's like you said, who do they really go get? I do have a couple of targets, mainly on that offensive line, guard-wise, but that's really it. That's all I really got. The re-signing, you said it's going to be pretty boring, so your re-sign guy is probably the obvious one.
A certain linebacker that we all know and love. Yeah.
That's your re-sign?
Yeah, who are you going to go with?
Justin Matabuke.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I actually don't even have Patrick Queen on here at all.
Well, we keep trying to say that Patrick Queen has to go to every freaking team. You know what I mean? We're like, oh, they can really use Patrick Queen. Couldn't the Ravens use Patrick Queen?
Yeah, and it's like, but it's that same conversation. How many teams are paying 2 linebackers?
With 2 good Achilles? Not many.
I was gonna say the Niners, but I don't know if that's a sore spot. Justin Matabuke is my for sure re-sign guy. You got to bring back. He's going to be projected a 4-year, $92 million contract, $23 million a year, $60.25 million guaranteed. And I do have one more too. I have Kevin Zeitler as your guard. If you're going to be trying to bring back one of your guards, you got to Kevin Zeitler, 2-year, $15 million, $7.5 million a year, and then $9.5 million in guarantees as well. And then my free agent targets are all guards. Again, I think it's that offensive line has to be at least the target. But again, this is one of those teams. It's hard to find what area do they improve in, because I don't think they go out and you can't go sign a difference maker and wide receiver right now. I think that could maybe come in the draft, but I don't think that difference maker comes in free agency personally. So your free agent targets right now, who do you got right now?
Well, wow, that was loud. My computer reset, and all the little things that go off in your ear and everything are really, really loud. But this is the conversation that I was talking about. I just don't know. I don't know what the Ravens do. Matabuke was the obvious one. I totally agree with you on that one. They have to bring Dalvin Cook back because he was huge for them last year. Just kidding. I do think they need to add at running back though. But it's really just kind of boring with them. Offensive guard, offensive tackle. That's probably that's really where they need to be at.
Yeah, it's a lot of trenches talk,
especially if they're they're in that area in the late draft where there's going to be a couple wide receivers sitting there, but there's also going to be a couple tackles sitting there. So it'll be interesting to see which way they go, because I really think running back, wide receiver, and offensive line, Odell Beckham is a free agent. I think another one of their wide receivers, Devin Duvernay, I think he's a free agent. So of course these aren't game changers by any type of stretch right now, but it's still depth, and you need depth, especially against on the offensive line. The Ravens have shown that they need depth at the running back position. You need depth at the wide receiver position. So they really seem like they'll be in the mix for some of those second class, third class. I shouldn't say that second and third class, but you know what I mean. Like they're not going to go out there and try to trade for Brandon Ayuk, but they might try to sign Jawan Jennings. You know what I mean? They may not be in the market to trade for L'Jarius Sneed, but they might be out there trying to get a Kello Witherspoon. That type of player for the Ravens is where I think they're mostly going to be.
Yeah. Guard wise, I have Dalton Reiser and Graham Glasnow as guys they could go out and go get. For Reiser, you have a 3-year, $24 million contract, $8 million a year, $15 million in guarantee, but a cheaper contract with Graham Glasgow, 2 years, $13 million, 6.5 a year, with 6.5 in guarantees. So kind of depends on which way you want to go. The other favorite, I will throw it out there too, is a lot of people kind of have that sneaky discussion of the Ravens maybe trying to go out and go get a Derrick Henry, and you say, oh, well, do they have the cap space for that? Well, we saw them clear up cap space and move stuff around for a guy like Odell Beckham, and I don't get the Odell Beckham hype for years and years and years now. It's so overblown, and I'm so tired of it. And yes, that's my bias as a Cowboys fan and not liking the Giants as well. So I don't understand it. But they went out and they signed him to like a 1-year, $15 million contract. They move money around to do that sort of thing. So moving money around to maybe go get a Derrick Henry in the backfield with Lamar Jackson is maybe the right move. How do you have the personnel on the field to deal with a Derrick Henry and a Lamar Jackson? Right? That could be the mismatches for defenses to really keep an eye on.
Yeah, I mean, I really think that was just to try to make Lamar happy. The Ravens are a unique case. I don't know how much better you can get without a complete overhaul of that team. It's just like, I don't know. There's some of the top teams in the NFL right now. I don't know how they get much better without massive just overhauls. I don't know how the Bills get much better, except for Josh Allen just needs to beat Patrick Mahomes. It's a tough question to ask when you're talking about Super Bowl aspirations, which these group of teams have.
Yep. Moving on to second place now, the Cleveland Browns have about $2 million in cap space. Again, effective cap space. I have 2 cut candidates here. I'll go ahead and start it off. The obvious one is Nick Chubb. You cut Nick Chubb. He's on the chopping block right now. $11.8 million saved in guarantees. Running backs are a dime a dozen right now. I'm not saying all running backs are the same and they're built the same. They're definitely not. The only valuable running back in the league right now who deserves a massive contract and deserves all the money that he's getting, is Christian McCaffrey. That's the one who makes the big difference on a team right now. Nick Chubb, as much as I love him, he's one of my favorite running backs in the league. $11.8 million saved, coming off of a major injury, which he's had a couple major injuries in his career already, going all the way back to Georgia. He's one of my big cut candidates right now.
Yeah, I think Nick Chubb, unfortunately, he's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I also have Elijah Moore. They could probably cut as well. $11.1 million. $3.1 million. 11, nice. $3.1 million in savings if they cut him. Really didn't do a whole lot. I don't know if he really fits into the offensive scheme. They're probably going to keep him around, but he's a guy that they could maybe move on from, especially since they have some guys that they might want to re-sign. I have two names here. Zadarius Smith, 2 years, $24 million, $12 million a year, and $19 million guaranteed. Zadarius Smith played really well. He's one of those guys that didn't put up a whole lot of numbers, but he still made an impact on the field regardless. But he's the more expensive re-sign. Do you have another guy out there that you maybe want to take a crack at for re-signing?
He's making that much money, huh?
For a re-sign?
Zadarius. No love for Flacco, huh?
I mean, you could if you want to.
I don't know. What are they gonna do? What are the Browns gonna do?
I think it's an interesting question because they're a team that made the playoffs, regardless of injuries to the cornerback position, regardless to poor play, not wanting to play, injuries, I guess, with their quarterback. But they're still in the playoffs. But they're also not in a position to draft a quarterback. You don't want to reset, and you're also not in a position to sign a veteran quarterback because you already have one on the roster that you guaranteed all this money to, and you can't do anything. You can't move off the contract. So they're in this like weird, I don't want to say purgatory because they could make the playoffs again, but it's like how you can't really go too far. Is the wild card as far as you can go? The divisional? I don't know. I can't really talk, whatever. But like, is that as far as you can really go with your team? Like you're not making it there with Deshaun Watson unless he turns into 2019 Deshaun Watson. You're toast. You're sitting there, you're eating your Wheaties. You have to deal with what you got to deal with him.
Outside of him just returning to form, they're in trouble.
Yeah.
I don't really know. I don't think anything matters for the Browns unless Deshaun Watson is going to do, unless he's going to be Houston Texans, Deshaun Watson. It's been so long and he had one good year.
Yep. Yeah. Free agent targets. You got anything? I only have a couple of safeties that they could run after.
I mean, I think they need an edge. They need to, if they're going to lose Zadarius Smith, then they need to put someone on the opposite side of Myles Garrett.
Yeah.
And if they're going to cut Nick Chubb, you can't just replace, you can't just bring in Joe Blow. Nick Chubb was a do-it-all for them. Safety is definitely a concern. And they don't have a first-round pick, right? Went to the Houston Texans.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, so the Browns and the Panthers don't have a first-round pick.
You gotta fill that spot somewhere.
Yeah, and I don't think I have Cam Curl as a potential target. I don't know if they're really in the market for it. He's projected a 4-year, $50 million contract, 12.5 a year, $28 million in guarantees, but a smaller 1-year contract that they could run after, depending on how much you really want the guy on your team. A 1-year, $5.33 million contract, fully guaranteed for a guy like C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Out most of the year last year, comes back for the playoffs. Again, he's depending on how much you really want the guy on your team, he's going to come cheap. You need to address the concerns of safety, and he has played well in the past, and he is a locker room presence, like him or not. So that's all I got for them, really. Unless you got something else.
I just it's hard to talk about the Browns when their biggest issue is obviously if their quarterback is any good, and you can't really. It's kind of like the Broncos. You can't really get off of them. I mean, the Broncos are going to try to get off of Russell, but it's just the Browns are in a tough spot.
Yep. And talk about another team that doesn't have a quarterback. The Pittsburgh Steelers, about $5 million in cap space. I have a handful of cut candidates right here. I'm going to go ahead and let you take the first crack at the Steelers cut candidates. Who you got?
Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph.
Their whole quarterback room.
Yeah, just cut them all. Throw them out. I'm not here for the like actual. I'm having a fit over here. I'm not here for the actual like detailed analysis. I'm here for like get Kenny Pickett off the football field, please.
How do you what do you there's two guys, veteran quarterbacks, that are tied to the Steelers right now, I think the most. No, I'm not going to say Justin Fields because I'm tired of the conversation. Ryan Tannehill and Russell Wilson are two guys who are tied to the Steelers a lot. Now those guys aren't going to take you per se to the Super Bowl, but I don't know if the Steelers really care about the Super Bowl that much when they just care about not losing. So how much stock do you put into guys like those coming to the team? Do you think they're really going to bring those guys on? Because Kenny Pickett's not starting next year. I think that's the only guarantee we can make.
Listen, bro, until Kirk Cousins signs with the team, I want every team to sign Kirk Cousins. So fair. I don't hate Ryan Tannehill, but I'm just like, I don't think Ryan Tannehill's all that much better than Kenny Pickett. You know what I mean? Like, what makes Ryan Tannehill successful was a really good wide receiver and a great running back. And
a lot of play action.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah. No, for sure. Number one cut candidate for the Pittsburgh Steelers for me is Allen Robinson. You could save $10 million by cutting Allen Robinson. I mean, I have other guys written here too who played mediocre, played okay is probably the stretch you can make. Patrick Peterson, aging, $6.8 million. Cole Holcomb, $6 million. I mean, there's a couple of guys they can move on from. Will they? I'm not sure. I think Allen Robinson's really the only big one that they can and that they will. Surprising he hasn't been cut up to this point, even though we've seen lots of cuts already before the official new league start. And re-signing, I don't really have anybody for the re-signing. I don't think they're letting anybody go to free agency that they need to bring back or bring in because the Steelers aren't very good. And the guys that they're walking right now, they're not very good. The whole team's just mediocre. You're lucky to get into the playoffs at the end of the day. So I don't really have anyone for re-signing unless you can throw a guy in. They
got a pretty good, I mean, their whole identity is their head coach, right?
Right.
Dude, they're such a mediocre. I mean, Levi Wallace is a good corner, you know.
Yeah, that's the only one I was considering.
You know, this division is terrible. There's nothing exciting to talk about on this division. I mean, honestly,
this was
tough. I don't know if anything in the last 15 minutes is even going to make the TikTok or the YouTube shorts at this point. I might have to take my shirt off or something, go crazy. That way we get some views because Allen Robinson is obviously, I mean, it's kind of funny. You said that, and I hopped on Twitter real quick just to see if he had been cut because I'm like, well, that seems like an obvious, you know, what they would do, and they haven't yet. So,
yeah,
to save that money, I don't know what they're saving that money to do because I don't really know who would sign up to go to Pittsburgh at this point. But
I wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean. And I don't think you want to sign I don't know how old he is. He's got to be in his early 30s by now. But Quan Alexander, hard to keep him on the field. He's getting hurt all over the place.
Not even playing well, even though even when he is playing on the field, he's not playing well. I mean, that's at the end of the day.
49er legend.
Right. Well, for the free agent guys that they should target, you should be looking at offensive line. Two guys that I have written down here. Center, Andre James, coming from the Raiders. 3 years, $27 million, $9 million a year, $15 million in guarantees. If you're looking for a smaller prove-it deal for a young guy who has all the athleticism in the world, who just can't stay on the field, a guy like Mekhi Becton might be a target to go after. A 1 year, $5 million fully guaranteed contract. He just can't stay on the field. He has all the athleticism. He has the tools. He can get it done. He just can't stay healthy. Your offensive line sucks. You do have a really good young tackle. You need another one, though. So maybe consider a cheap deal like that. Could get it done for you. So, I mean, you think about it, oh, yeah, then maybe it's not a great signing. But if he stays on the field and he stays healthy and all of a sudden he blows up, looks like a pretty damn good deal for you. So, you have anyone for the Steelers?
I want to know why it is when I talk about the Jets potentially keeping Mekhi, you ridicule me, but all of a sudden he's like your number one for a team to add. That's what I want to know. Explain.
Because he's cheap for that team. The thing is the Jets need to move on from Mekhi Becton. It doesn't work out, you move on at the end of the day. It's like anytime if the Cowboys draft a player and he doesn't move on and all of a sudden he plays well We were not the team for him. We could not keep him healthy. We were the issue there, which were the issue in a lot of things. But I think right now the Jets can't provide Mekhi Becton with the type of, whether it's strength training, whether it's the right diet, whatever it is for Mekhi Becton, he cannot stay on the field right now. And maybe the Steelers are one of those teams that can. So again, I think you could take a flyer deal on it. And plus, when you're a high draft pick like that, guys get bad taste in their mouth. Mekhi Becton going to the Steelers for a $5 million deal is a lot better for Steelers fans than coming back to the Jets. You would roll your eyes as a Jets fan. Be like, dude, we're bringing this guy back again. Why? Why are we doing this again? It's just a different taste.
Yeah, so I guess they bring Mason Rudolph back.
Yeah, that's I think that's the plan. Yeah.
I mean, whatever. This division is so insignificant. It's just like,
yeah. Moving on to at least a little bit more exciting, the Cincinnati Bengals. They have $45 million in cap space, which super surprising. They have this much cap space considering they're paying a quarterback, but they have a bunch of guys on a lot of cheap deals and rookie deals. So, cut candidate for this team, I got nobody. I have nobody for this team to cut. That's my opinion, though. I think a lot of guys who are performing at their contract level. I couldn't find a guy that I could say, yes, this guy right here, we're cutting him. He's not playing well. I had a hard time finding anybody. Guys like Trey Hendrickson, Orlando Brown, BJ Hill, Sam Hubbard, Alex Kappa, Mike Hilton, Ted Karras, all those guys played to their contract level or above their contract level. So I couldn't find a guy to cut on this team that would save them a significant amount of money. Maybe a couple of small things here and there, but nothing really significant in my eyes.
Yeah, doing my research because nothing jumped off the page at me, and the problem is I didn't all my notes I took is I left at work, but they signed a safety. But then they turned to, because they lost Jesse Bates, so they signed a safety, and then they turned to their draft picks to start at safety mid-year this year. So they have a safety. I don't think he makes much. I think he saves them $3 or $4 million. Nick Scott, to like $3 million in savings. So it's not a ton, and you already have the money. But when you're a franchise like the Cincinnati Bengals, their expectations got to be to make it to the Super Bowl next year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every little bit helps. So, but when you look at a team like this and you can't signal out, we talked about some of the great teams. We talked about the Ravens. There's no obvious cut candidate. When we talked about the Cowboys, we're talking about Michael Gallup and his $4 million. I remember who we talked about for the 49ers. I think I brought up Dre Greenlaw. The obvious one was Isaiah Oliver, who they already cut. You know what I mean? These really good teams don't have these glaring mistakes on paper, and that's why they're at, Cincinnati Bengals don't have an obvious cut candidate. They have a ton of cap space, and their team is pretty much set to make a deep run if their quarterback can stay healthy. That's everything you want out of a really good team.
Hey, man, dude, they do things every other year. Every other year, they do something. So it's this next year the Bengals they're marching, man.
That's a fact.
Re-signing candidate, the big one I got is DJ Reader. 3 years, $45.75 million, $15.25 a year, $29.75 in guarantees. If you don't want to re-sign a guy like that, you could turn to the draft where you're drafting. You could grab a guy like Byron Murphy if he's sitting there from Texas. Newton is the other guy that you can also draft. But
who's the other guy? Devondre Campbell? Is that his name?
Tavondre Sweat.
Maybe that's what it is. Let me look it up now. Did you see what Chop Robinson did at the combine today?
No, I wasn't able to dive into all the guys in the combine.
Okay, I'll hold off on that then.
Yeah,
he put on a show. I'll just throw that out there.
Which is kind of expected, right? I mean, Chop is so athletic, and he has all the tools in the world.
Sweat, you had that right.
Yeah, Tavondre Sweat from Texas. I don't think he's really a first round guy. He's more like a second round guy. He's that hole plugger, right? He's the drain stopper. That's what he's supposed to be. Which no, he's not going to the Bengals. I want the Cowboys to draft him. So obviously we're not going to because Mozzie Smith is just so great. So we want to go ahead and keep him around. For the Bengals, I think something that they need to do, obviously, year after year after year after year since Joe Burrow has been drafted, is what? Fix your offensive line. And I think that my favorite target, when I wrote this down, I think it was probably the most excited because obviously, if you listen to the podcast, Dalton Reiser and C.J. Gardner-Johnson and Mekhi Becton, I don't think those move the needle for anybody. But someone I actually got really excited for, and I really like this fit, is Michael Winu, coming from the coming from the Patriots. I think this is probably my favorite fit. 4 years, $58 million, 14.5 a year, 33.25 in guarantees. We're talking about a guy who's played snaps all over the offensive line. Late round draft pick. He's going to end up getting paid. He's not going back to the Patriots because he's not taking a hometown discount. I really like this fit for a team that constantly has injuries all over the line, that needs line help at every position. Michael Winu is someone to bring in my opinion. I really like this fit. It's probably one of my more exciting fits. Another guy I have two on top of that is Robert Hunt.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be a little boring as far as the re-sign candidates, since you kind of skipped me there, brother. I think that the most obvious one is T. Higgins, but we won't go there because we've already talked about that. If you're going to let T. Higgins walk, Tyler Boyd is an obvious re-sign candidate because he's not going to command a ton of money. I still like the tackle, Jonah. I know he's had his ups and downs out there, but you're talking about drafting or signing tackle. Obviously, you got one that's there. And then my man, one of the best names in the game, Cheeto at the cornerback position. It's just he's had an interesting career so far in the NFL, and I just think he's one of those guys that you can bring back as a second or third tier. 4.49 second 40-yard dash for Chop Robinson at 254 pounds. 4.49 40. So you guys hear that sound? That's the sound of him rocketing up draft boards with the 4.49. So yeah, sorry, that finally found the information I was looking for. 449. That's what he did today. So hey, listen, if you're going to come on the podcast, you need to do your research. We had a whole day of combine stuff, and you didn't even know that. So
all right, bro.
Just put Adam Schefter on notifications, man.
Yeah. Well, I don't use Twitter, so you're the Twitter guy. You're supposed to do that for me.
Elon's app. Let's go.
You have any free agents that they should sign?
That is a big man moving very, very quickly. They just need to improve their offensive line. I don't care how they do it. I don't care if they sign every offensive free agent out there. I don't care if they sign Mekhi Becton and bring back Jonah and trade for whatever you got to do. Send your next 10 years of first round picks to the Detroit Lions for Penei Sewell. I don't care what you have to do. You have to keep your franchise quarterback healthy. He has had a pretty significant injury history now in his career, and you need to do what you can do to keep him healthy. So I don't care. I'm not going to name a player. I don't care who it is. I just want you to fix that offensive line and keep Joe Burrow healthy. Please.
Absolutely.
I'm asking nicely.
Moving on to the NFC North, we have the Lions, Packers, Vikings, Bears. Starting in that order, Detroit Lions, we have $49 million in cap space. Really, the only significant person that they are paying is Jared Goff. Cut candidate for the Detroit Lions. You got anybody?
I don't.
I know that
sounds odd, but
John Kaminsky was the only guy that I found you could cut. $4.6 million save. But again, it's like we said, you're looking at those top end guys, the top end teams. It's hard to find cut candidates. It's hard to find guys to let go, So yeah, no, I agree. What about re-signing? Who you got on your re-sign block?
Let me pull up Detroit. I know we're not an extension podcast, but I think one of the things they're really going to want to do is they're going to want to extend. I know we were talking about them not extending him, but Mr. Goff, I think they wanted, especially with the spike in cap this year. I think that might be something you see them do. I don't really know as far as a re-sign. I guess the most popular one, I don't know who you have, but Josh Reynolds. I mean, I know 49ers fans want them to re-sign Josh Reynolds. He was a hell of a player for us in the NFC Championship game. I'm not a huge fan of CJ Gardner-Johnson. Obviously, he had the history with us with, kind of the stuff he said about Debo and everything. So I'm not a big fan of him, but he seemed to ball out everywhere he goes, and he's never really been paid. I think that might be because of his attitude. But I mean, I would probably live there, one of the two of them.
I have the guard Jonah Jackson. So
Mm-hmm.
someone that they could bring back. He's looking at a 3-year, $30.75 million contract, $10 million a year, 16.75 in guarantees. And yeah, the other guy I considered was Josh Reynolds. So I mean, at the end of the day, I think Detroit's going to look for another weapon there, right? I think that Josh Reynolds could be a really good 3. And if you bring in a guy like, if you go all in, and you look for a guy who's maybe a big-bodied wide receiver who might be looking for a good contract, maybe at the maybe might get 1,000 yards every single year, and might be looking to go to a contender like Mike Evans. You have your 1, you have your 2, Amon-Ra, you have your Mike Evans, you got your Josh Reynolds, you have your burner if you want to throw in a burner, and what's his name? Oh, I always forget his name because I don't really care about him. He always has a 99 speed in Madden. Mason Williams. I don't really care about
great,
him,
bro. He's a Madden legend.
I don't really care about Jameson Williams, so he's not really even on my radar. So Josh Reynolds, you bring in a guy like potentially Mike Evans, and then all of a sudden your offense is looking pretty damn good. Bringing just one piece like that. What about free agent targets? Who do you have?
I think they need to upside up. They need to do something with the offensive line a little bit.
Yeah.
Jared Goff is a statue. Jonah Jackson maybe would make a lot of sense for them. Apparently, Mekhi Becton is off limits to say he should go to teams because you hate him, even though you used him. So that's not fair. But offensive line there, I do like the idea of them getting another running back. No, I'm just kidding. Another wide receiver, and they got to revamp their secondary. So I don't know if CJ Gardner-Johnson is going to be a part of that, but the Detroit Lions are a lot of that's where I see a lot of these, again, second tier, third tier, these corners and everything out there. The Ahkello Witherspoon, the Cheeto. Say his last name for me.
Awuzie.
Those types of players. I just think there's some really solid corners out there in the market that aren't number one corners. Yeah. Hell, I mean, the Detroit Lions are a team that could pay L'Jarius Sneed. So maybe it's one of those things. I think that even though their team doesn't believe they're going to make it back to the playoffs, they have a chance, and they need to make a splash to make it happen.
Yeah. I think you can bring in a guy like Kendall Fuller, 3 years, $40 million, $25 million in guarantees, 13.33 a year. Or if you want to address your slot corner needs, you have Kenny Moore, 2 years, 13.5 million, 6.75.
Yeah, I don't hate that.
If that's Kenny Moore's going rate is 2 years, 13.5 in contract, sign me up. I mean, that's a bargain deal for a guy like Kenny Moore, in my opinion. So you can bring in both those guys. Kenny Moore addressing your slot, Kendall Fuller addressing your outside. And then if you want to address the cornerback position still in the draft because it's a deep corner draft, address it. You're going to have guys like Ennis Rakestraw, TJ Tampa, your guy, Kamari Lassiter from Georgia. So you're going to have guys at the end of that first round guaranteed going to be sitting there ready to go. So I think a guy like Rakestraw too is a guy who's going to be pretty good fit for Detroit if they want to go in that direction. So revamping their secondary is going to be something that's going to be a priority for them. Moving on to the Green Bay Packers, they have $2 million in cap space currently. Luckily, I think we both have the same cut candidate. Luckily, David Bakhtiari is probably going to get cut, and you're going to save like $20.9 million just in the one cut. So you're looking at closer to $22 million in cap space on that alone. You have anyone else besides David Bakhtiari? I was having a hard time trying to go through and maybe seeing if we could save a little bit of money here and there. David's obviously the big one, but do you have anyone else?
I don't even think they're going to cut him, to be honest with you.
You don't think so?
No, he's been a cut candidate for like 4 straight seasons. They just keep bringing his raggedy ass back to camp. So at this point, it would shock me if they did.
Yeah.
He's only 33.
Yeah, but he's played like 9 games in 3 seasons.
Yeah, I mean, Okay, he has the largest cap figure of any non-quarterback at just under $40 million. That's ideal if you want to build a. Listen, listen. They got to keep him on the team, or else the average age of that team is under like 23. They need
Right.
some experience on that. No, I mean obviously back to Ari, he's gone.
Right. Yeah.
Again, that's another one where I'm surprised it hasn't been announced already.
Yeah. No, I agree. Re-signing candidates. Safety is a position that they might want to address, and even though he might not, he's played well in coverage and he can't tackle very well. Darnell Savage is a guy they could bring back 2 years, $10 million, $5 million a year, 6 in guarantees. So he's a guy you could bring back again. Maybe even if you do draft a guy, like the favorite right now, favorite spot to put Cooper DeJean is the Packers, and if they want to convert him to a slot corner / safety, you could still play Darnell Savage and put Cooper DeJean closer to the box, because look, Cooper DeJean's a fantastic tackler. He's the probably best corner tackler in the draft, and it's not even really close, and he has great athleticism. So
He's a real good safety.
yeah. He's a real good safety. He could play outside perfectly fine, but he might end up getting converted to that slot corner safety spot. Yeah, that's my resign.
They have to revamp that entire defense. I wouldn't re-sign anyone from that defense. Honestly, if they were going to bring anyone back with the way Aaron Jones was playing, maybe AJ Dillon. I don't think he'll cost a ton of money, and I really like the speed and power. I think that every team should kind of have that. When you look at Tony Pollard, when he was at his absolute best, it was because he was spelling Ezekiel Elliott, and Zeke was just pounding the rock, and then Tony Pollard came in with fresh legs. I think the reason why AJ Dillon wore down last season is because Aaron Jones was hurt so much, and he just had to do a lot more than he was expected to do, but in a backup running back role. If not, I do think you need to fill that role, that backup running back role, because to rely on Aaron Jones to carry the football for an entire season, I don't think is a smart play for them. And they need him to stay healthy if they want to make a run next year.
Clearly, because then when he got healthy, he went on. When he got healthy, he ended up going on a run at the end of the season. So, and it helped to make a big push. So,
and beat the Cowboys.
Yeah, shut up. Anyways, biggest targets for them in free agency. If you're not going to target Darnell Savage, you want to go with a guy who's going to be playing at a higher level. Xavier McKinney, 4 years, $54 million, $13.5 a year, $30 million in guarantees. Or they could go after a center. They really haven't had a center since Corey Linsley left a couple of years ago to the Chargers. Tyler Biadasz, coming from the Cowboys, is probably a pretty good candidate for them. 3 years. 3-year, $21 million contract, 7 a year, 11 in guarantees. So that's who I have for them, is a center and safety spots. Who do you have on the block?
I got, honestly, anything to do with that defense, I think would just, I think that's what they have to do.
Yeah.
I'm not as down on their defense as everyone else was. I think it was just a young group and a defensive coordinator that might have been a little bit over his head. So replacing that defensive coordinator, they have a ton of talent at running back.
Yep.
I mean, I'm sorry, a ton of talent at wide receiver, a ton of talent at running back. I don't know. I think they need a little bit more consistency behind Luke Musgrave, at tight end. But it's really just all defense for the Green Bay Packers. And I want them to identify what they're trying to do next year and fit players to fit the scheme, and then just let the offense cook a little bit.
Yeah, because Jalen Reed was your best wide receiver last year.
We don't need it to be a top 10 defensive unit. We just need it to be enough to, we can't ask Jordan Love to put up 30 points a game. That's not going to be a winning formula for us.
Throw the ball 60 times
I'm a
a
Green
game.
Bay Packer fan, but putting it up 24 to 27 points, if you can win these games 24 to 21, I think that's a good place for the Packers to live, because I think that that offense can put up that type of production.
Yeah, I agree. Moving on to third place, the Minnesota Vikings. They have $30 million in cap space. Cut candidate. What do you got?
I mean, is Kirk still technically on the team, or is he a full-blown free agent? I mean, he's a full-blown free agent, right?
Yeah, he's a full-blown free agent. I'm pretty sure he still counts against the cap because of how they structure the contract.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, he's technically still full-blown.
Minnesota Vikings. Who do you got?
I only have Byron Murphy Jr. That's all I got. Underperforming corner, $9.5 million in savings for a cut for a guy who's not playing up to that contract. That's the only real guy I have.
Yeah, it just seems like with the Minnesota Vikings, I'm not really sure what they're doing with their roster right now or what they're doing to move forward. So I just think that it's one of those things where I'm sure there's players that aren't making as much money.
Yeah,
Um, Eric Hendricks probably, you could save a bunch of money if you cut him, but is that what you're looking to do? Are you looking to save a bunch of money and go after a bunch of free agents this season? Are you looking to just kind of suck for a year?
depends if they bring Kirk back, right?
I mean, if you're bringing Kirk back, then you want to re-sign Daniel Hunter, right? If you're not doing that, then
I mean, that's your two re-signed guys, right? I mean, Kirk and Daniil. Both those guys are going
Daniil,
to command,
yeah.
both those guys are going to command a ton of money. 2 years, $70 million for Kirk, or a 3 year, $65 million for Daniil Hunter. You're looking at a lot of guarantees between those guys over the next, couple of years. $90 million in guarantees. So
Based off of a certain mock draft that's going to be covered at the end of the podcast and a certain J.J. McCarthy being drafted to the Minnesota Vikings, I don't think that Kirk Cousins would be my target to bring back. But, they cut Alexander Madison today.
yeah, today, yeah, they did.
So that was obviously a cut candidate that we could have brought up because he got cut. But
Yeah.
I don't know what they're doing at running back. So maybe a potential. I know we haven't segued right to that, but I don't know what are the Minnesota Vikings trying to accomplish next year? Like they're just going to be like mediocre. Like, and I don't really like I've said like 16 times in the past 30 seconds. I apologize. The GM basically came out and was like, yeah, we're going to cut back, we're going to scale back, we're going to. Well, no, nobody tanks in the NFL. So what's the goal? That if I was a media member, if I was credentialed, which would never happen, I would just, hey, what's your guys' goal for next season? What do you expect to accomplish next season? Because it doesn't feel like they're doing much.
Yeah. I think the big thing they need to work on is obviously if you are gonna draft a guy like JJ McCarthy, you have good offensive weapons, right? You have two good wide receivers, you have a good tight end, you have a good offensive line. You need to work on your defense. And the thing is who gets the final say here for the Minnesota Vikings defense? Is it the GM or is it Brian Flores? Because if it's Brian Flores, you're probably bringing in a corner, right? You're bringing corners like a Stephon Gilmore, or you're trying to maybe you are trying to go big, or is it the GM who maybe is going to say, well, we need edge rushers and we want to go after a guy like Bryce Huff, right? 3 years, $50 million contract, a Jonathan Grenard, 3 years, $48 million contract. So who gets the final say on this defense? Because all Brian Flores wants to do is have these weird schemes where multiple rushers come in and odd angles, and there's no pure pass rusher outside of Daniil Hunter, which freed him up great. But if you're not going to bring him back, who's going to be the guy at that point? Because they don't really have another guy. So that's kind of my question for the free agent targets is the edge rusher or corner. That's who I have. I just don't know which direction they're going to go because to me, it's who gets the final say here.
I think, you got to do something. The more I sit here and think about it, you got to do something to keep Justin Jefferson happy, right? Have you already decided
definitely.
that you're moving on from him? Like you got his replacement on the roster. Everything the Minnesota Vikings are doing right now is very confusing to me. I'm not exactly sure what they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, there's a handful of teams that I think are a big question mark moving into free agency and the draft. I think the Vikings are one. The Patriots are a big question mark on what they're going to do with everything because obviously they have almost damn near a whole new regime in. So yeah, there's a couple of teams out there you're kind of scratching your head saying what's going on next. Chicago Bears 60.
Would you be surprised now that you brought them up? So I'm going to bring them up quickly before we talk about our favorite subject, which is Chicago Bears. Do you think that the Patriots could move up to 2?
Yes. I think they could. I think that the Washington Commanders could be willing to move back to 3 because of Cliff Kingsbury and the type of offense he wants to run, and Jaden Daniels could run that type of offense. And I think the Patriots are drafting a quarterback at the end of the day, right? Now it's who do they like more, Jaden Daniels or Drake May? The Patriots made some interest. The GM for the Patriots made some interesting comments saying, he was asked about what type of quarterback do you want? What type of qualities in quarterback do you look for? And he said character was a big one. He said you don't want a guy who's on the field and a bad play happens and he throws his arms up or he points at somebody saying it's your fault, right? Well, obviously you could say, well, Mac Jones did that because his character, his body language this year was absolutely atrocious. He would lose at poker. But the other guy that you could take a look at too is, I think it was stitched. It was not stitched, but it was retweeted and it was quote tweeted with Jaden Daniels doing that exact same thing too, like that exact same thing. He threw his hands up and he pointed at one of his receivers like it was your fault. So it's interesting. How high are they on Jaden Daniels, and do they want to move up for a guy like Drake May instead? And are the Commanders willing to move back to have Jaden Daniels run that Cliff Kingsbury offense? I think that's what it comes down to, and I think it's definitely possible. Absolutely.
I think that it's likely that I just don't know as a brand new GM, and is it really the first year you want to bring in a quarterback, especially Jaden Daniels? Like Drake May,
everybody
cool.
Gets their crack once, right? That's it. That's all you get. You get one time to bring in your quarterback. You don't get more.
So you think they just pull the trigger?
I think so. Your regime's not going to go down, right? Your regime's not going to go down with somebody else's quarterback. That's the whole thing with the Bears right now. The Bears regime, the new people that are coming in, are not going down with Justin Fields. They're not the guys who brought in Justin Fields. They're not going to be the ones who are going to go down with him. And that happens every single year. This does not work out with the Jets very, very soon. Robert Saleh, the GM, they're all out. They're done. You get one crack. You took a crack at Zach Wilson. It did not work. So you get one chance, one opportunity. You know, that's all you get. And so if the Patriots are this new regime's coming in, I think they're taking a crack at the quarterback, regardless of what happens, whether they trade up to 2 or they sit at 3. They're taking the crack at it. I don't think they're going out. They're signing a veteran. I don't think they're expecting to be piss poor. I think they're expecting to develop somebody.
And without further ado, we move on to the Bears.
$66 million in cap space for the Chicago Bears. I believe it's the second most. Yeah, it's the second most in the league, with the Titans being number 1. $72 million in cap space. Jesus. Cut candidates. I don't really have any for the Bears at this point.
Cairo Santos. He sucks. And he makes like $4 million.
If we have to name somebody, yeah. Re-signing candidates, who do you got?
Jalen Johnson.
I think he's going to probably end up getting tagged. Obviously, a long-term deal is what you're going to be aiming for. I also have Darnell Mooney. Regardless if you draft a receiver at 9, Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze, whatever it is, regardless if you draft him, you have DJ Moore, you have one of those 2 guys, and then on top of that, you have Darnell Mooney as a 3. That's a good lineup. You know, Cole Kmet as well. You improve the offensive line maybe through the draft and free agency.
The Bears, do you have their free agent list in front of you?
Of guys who are free agents?
Yeah, who's the edge rusher? Pretty good. And Nuge? What's his name?
Yannick Ngakoue?
Yeah, Ngakoue. I think they have another wide receiver also. Oh, they have Amon-Ra's brother, I think, is a free agent. If you're not able to bring back, you mentioned Mooney. If you're not able to bring back Mooney, maybe you bring back Ignamius. Say it, come on.
Yannick Ngakoue.
No, the wide receiver.
Equisemius Brown.
Equisemius, yeah.
Yeah, no,
I think pissed if you name my brother Amon-Ra, something hella gangster like that, and then you name me after it looks like some bacteria you found at the bottom of the ocean.
You're right. Oh man,
how you gonna name me after a bacteria? That's cold.
Biggest free agent targets for the Bears. Who are you going after?
No. Who do you have? I mean, I really like the defense. I feel like it's only a piece or 2 away. I think you could upgrade a wide receiver. I think you could upgrade at running back. I don't know if you need to. I really like Cole Kmet. You could always, wide receiver. I mean,
guards is really what they have. One good guard.
That's boring though. You can go after the free agent offensive lineman stuff. I know you're grinding the tape on guards, Skoronsky, style. But I more want them to go like go get Hollywood Brown for Caleb Williams. Like, yeah, I know you hate him, but go get somebody. Go get Quez Watkins. You know what I mean? Like, go get the Chiefs just cut what's his face, the fast guy today, MVS.
MVS.
You know what I mean? Like, go get a burner. Put somebody on the field. Madden legend Danny Gray. Put somebody out there that Caleb can just load up and chuck it. You gotta do it once a half. And I don't even care if you I honestly think the team should do it more. Like, just overthrow the wide receiver by 3 or 4 yards. That way it's not a guarantee. It's not going to be an interception. It won't be anything bad. You just got to make the pass. Like, you got to threaten it.
Yeah. Maybe Brandon Cooks will find his way over there. Who knows?
Well, he does make $10 million next year, and he only had 600 pass receiving yards. So I know you cannot possibly replace that, but that's an option.
All right, Drew, if you're ready for mock draft 1.0,
Caleb Williams.
I can you share your screen if you're so can you go to like the PFF thing, or do you want me to you tell me and I could just pull it up?
Yeah, you pull it up and I'll tell you who to slot there.
All right. Let me pull up PFF. Excuse me, PFF, the mock draft simulator for the podcast listeners. Drew is going to have the first crack at our mock draft 1.0. First round mock draft only. No trades, right, Drew?
No, I will not be talking about the Patriots move up to 2. I will not be talking about the Chicago Bears move up to 4. I won't be talking about any of that.
Go ahead, and I will share my screen. Hang. All right. First pick, Chicago Bears. They're clearly going Marvin Harrison Jr. They're going to go ahead and save. They're going to keep Justin Fields, and they're never going to touch Caleb Williams, right?
You guys have to understand that Justin Fields is he's so misunderstood in the NFL quarterback circles. And I watch ball, bro. Do you see how thick my glasses are? And I look like a sexy tight end. So I just need everybody to help me out so I can get signed into this damn thing that I did my draft on earlier. And I have to tell you, I took about a solid 13 minutes to throw this all together. So I'm very excited.
So first overall, we're going Caleb Williams.
Yeah, we can definitely go Caleb Williams at number 2. And if you'd like, you can even slide in Drake May at number 3. Number 2, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Drake May 2 to the Washington Commanders, right? I think those pretty common. 1, 2. I think the more popular one starting to come up right now is the Jaden Daniels thing is starting to pop up. I think who was it? Old head Mel Kiper just put Washington taken Jaden Daniels at 2, and I've seen it a couple other times as well. So I've also seen Jaden Daniels fall to like 5 to the Giants in Daniel Jeremiah's recent mock draft. So
now, are you going to save this?
This mock draft?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Perfect, because we got to document this. Okay.
Okay.
New England Patriots, number 3. Marvin Harrison Jr.
Okay. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility.
Perfect. Number 4, Malik Neighbors.
Okay.
Number 5.
Hey.
I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. You got to go to the. You got to go to the corners. Okay.
Okay, we're going
to the corners.
Corners.
Yeah. Grab Mr. Alabama there for me. Cooper DeJean, why is he ranked so high right there? What is going on?
So Terrion Arnold for
PFF is broken. I'm a little pissed off that you foreshadowed this, but I am gonna go at number 6 with Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, man. I don't know if you saw what the GM of the Giants was saying, and He did not seem very happy talking about Daniel Jones today at all. Not even a little bit. Or yesterday, I believe. Past 2 days, he just was not very happy talking about Daniel Jones.
I didn't see Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft though, so I'm gonna pop that up here real quick just to see if I can. Oh, of course, it's in video format. That's not going to help me. Let's see if I can pop up here, and if not, I just want to make sure that I'm not biting his style too much. Oh no. Okay, good. He took Joe Alt for the Chargers, so I'm not exactly. Yep.
I think he did take Terrion Arnold in a mock draft in the past.
Okay, so Joe Alt for the Tennessee Titans. They get the best tackle in the draft. Do you think there's a conversation
here? Do you think there's a conversation here for wide receiver for the Tennessee Titans?
I think there's conversation there for anything. I think it's a good place for them to drop back. If you want to go tackle here, or if you want to go wide receiver here, just drop back into 2025, and you can still get a great tackle or a great wide receiver, in my opinion. Like, I don't hate it at all to discuss not making the pick here. I also don't hate it at all just going chalk and taking the best tackle in the draft. You know, it's just, you know, what's their quarterback situation next year? Who's the starting quarterback?
I mean,
is Levis just, they're just going to run with him, you know, or they're going to do an open in camp?
Yeah, I mean, you guess you can get Will Levis and what's his name? Drafted a couple years ago from the Titans.
He's definitely a running back, but that's fine.
Atlanta Falcons.
Edge from Alabama. Dallas. Nice name.
Yeah, it's all right, I guess.
Chicago is going to go with Rome.
Okay. My personal wide receiver, too.
The New York Jets are definitely going to go tackle.
Okay, so you have two tackles.
And we got, let's go with Penn State right there.
Olufashanu. Yeah.
Olufashanu.
Yeah, my personal OT1. I'm not gonna knock him too much on the run blocking. I think it's overblown and overrated. I think Olufashanu is the best pass blocker in the draft right now. Joe Alt's a safe pick. I think Olufashanu has the higher ceiling.
All right, Minnesota Vikings, Mr. JJ McCarthy, come on down. Let's go.
So with this situation, does the Minnesota Vikings bring in a veteran for JJ to sit under, or is JJ starting him immediately?
JJ doesn't need to sit. He played, you know. He played a lot of snaps in a run heavy Jim Harbaugh offense. I don't think he needs to sit. I think he plays right away, assuming he can.
Just for the listeners on the podcast, not for the watchers. So first pick, we have Caleb Williams. Second, we have Drake May. Third, we have Marvin Harrison Jr. to the Patriots. Fourth, to the Arizona Cardinals, we have Malik Neighbors. Fifth, to the LA Chargers, Terrion Arnold, cornerback from Alabama. Sixth pick, we have quarterback from LSU, Jaden Daniels. Seventh, to the Tennessee Titans, we have the tackle from Notre Dame, Joe Alt. Eighth pick, to the Atlanta Falcons, we have edge rusher Dallas Turner. Ninth pick, Romo Dunze, wide receiver from Washington. And 10th pick, Olufashanu, tackle from Penn State. And then once we get to pick 20, we'll review again 11 to 20. So 12th pick on the clock, Denver Broncos. Where are we going?
Do you hate anything so far?
No, I don't think so. I think that there's I have the next mock draft, right? So I think one I've been mulling over and been playing around in my mind with is wide receiver at the Atlanta Falcons position right here. Instead, if you look at who's on contract, it's like Drake London, and that's it. There's like nobody on contract for wide receiver for the Atlanta Falcons. So
I wouldn't be surprised if the Atlanta Falcons took JJ McCarthy.
Yeah, that's another one I've heard too. Who did I just saw a mock with the Atlanta Falcons taking JJ not that long ago too. So I think nothing's really out of the ordinary or crazy. Obviously, I'm not the biggest JJ McCarthy fan, but the reality of the situation is, I guess you're betting on tools, even though tools aren't that great. I mean, I know the NFL values winners a lot, I guess, and JD McCarthy is a winner. So that's the only one I'm like, I guess. I mean, it's a reality situation. He's going to go high in my mock draft too, but it is what it is, But Olufashano falling to the Jets at 10 is great because Talisi Fuaga is the other one that goes to the Jets a lot too.
Yeah, and I honestly hate this pick. I don't know what the Broncos are going to do here. It feels like this is like a super wild card pick. I think that they just need so much. I don't think they go corner, even though they need one because they already have a first round corner. They obviously need quarterback, but I don't think that they should reach for a quarterback here because I just don't think there's anyone. If JJ fell right here, I think that's an option.
I think so. Yeah.
I really like either Brian Murphy or Jared Verse here. I think edge is more important for them than inside defensive line, so I'm just going to go ahead and slot Jared Verse. But to be honest with you, when the draft rolls around, I don't think they're picking in this spot anyway. So for the purposes of the mock, I'll slap him in there. Raiders are going to make the smart pick and go with Fuagua.
That's not possible.
And the Saints, again, tough situation, but he's fallen too far. So we're just going to go ahead and let the New Orleans Saints take Mr. Brock Bowers.
Wow. Yeah. With how the board has fallen, actually, let's talk about the picks 11 through 20 when we get to pick 20. Go ahead. Indianapolis Colts.
They need a wide receiver. Bring up the wide receivers. It's way too high for Brian Thomas.
Yeah.
I don't love that. Who else do they have on need for them?
Wide receiver, offensive line, interior defensive line, defensive back.
Joe Latham, maybe? It's really high for Joe Latham.
Oh, JC. Yeah. I don't know, dude. Mel Kiper had JC Latham as OT1 going to the Chargers. Insanity. Yeah. I think JC Latham's in play here, definitely.
Let's go with Brian Thomas Jr., assuming they lose Michael Pittman in free agency. They got to replace that explosive deep threat, and Michael Pittman fits that. Brian Thomas fits that, so we'll go ahead and slot him in there. Seattle Seahawks. I feel like they need an edge, but there's just not really anyone there.
Latu is still sitting there.
Let's go to who's that? He's the number one center in the class.
Oh, yes, Jackson Powers Johnson.
Yes, JPJ, Jackson Power Johnson, Oregon. Seattle Seahawks. I love the fact that they have a top 16 pick, and I just mocked them to take a center because that's kind of funny to me. Jacksonville Jaguars. Let's go ahead and put on. Oh, boy. Jacksonville Jaguars feel like a good fit for Nate Wiggins.
Okay. Yeah.
Fits a need. Cincinnati Bengals. Could they go wide receiver here, you think? I feel like they got to go tackle.
I mean, you
or
still got
guard.
You still got JC Latham sitting there. Yeah, guard-wise, you don't really have a Christian Haynes, but he's just a little bit too early for Christian Haynes.
Let's go with Latham. Let's throw Latham in there. That's the right pick.
I think Latham's closer to a guard anyways, in my opinion. I'm not in love with JC Latham. I think he's like a left guard, right guard. Yeah. You have the LA Rams on the clock at pick 19.
I kind of think it's suspicious when players play their entire career in college at right tackle. I don't feel like that translates a lot.
Penei Sewell did.
Did he really? Did he play his entire? Who was left tackle for the Penei Sewell college teams? That's a conversation for another time.
Yeah,
Los Angeles Rams. Yeah. The Los Angeles Rams. Well, the Los Angeles Rams will probably trade this pick, but if they don't, The rich can't possibly get richer with Brian Murphy, could they? What if Brian Murphy fell to the Rams and they paired him up with that rookie from last year and they let Aaron Donald kind of show him a thing or two? I kind of hate that. I don't like the way this has gone. Abandoned ship. I don't. Let's put that in there. Brian Murphy. I honestly think I messed something up here. I don't think Brian Murphy falls that far. But actually, to be honest with you, I think the Seahawks would take Brian Murphy now that I'm thinking about it. But that's fine. We're now on the Pittsburgh Steelers, who, you know who is a Pittsburgh Steeler? That guy right there. Go ahead, throw him in there. Mr. Cooper DeJean. He's got Pittsburgh Steeler written all over him.
So to review the 11 through 20, we have J.J. McCarthy, quarterback from Michigan, going to the Minnesota Vikings. Pick 12, we have edge rusher Jared Verse to Denver Broncos picking Jared Verse, edge rusher from Florida State. We have Talisi Fuaga going to the Raiders, tackle from Oregon State. Pick 14, we have Brock Bowers, tight end from Georgia, going to New Orleans. Crazy. Pick 15, we have Brian Thomas, wide receiver LSU. 16, Jackson Powers Johnson, center for Oregon, going to the Seattle Seahawks. Pick 17, the Jacksonville Jaguars getting Nate Wiggins, corner from Clemson. Pick 18, we have the Cincinnati Bengals getting tackle/guard J.C. Latham from Alabama. And pick 19, we have Byron Murphy, the second interior defensive lineman from Texas. And pick 20, we have Cooper DeJean, corner from Iowa. My take on this is, one, Talisi Fuaga to the Raiders makes too much sense because they don't make too much sense picking. And I love Talisi Fuaga. My opinion about the tackles is Olufashano 1, Joe Alt 2, and Talisi Fuaga 3. Oh my gosh, I like Talisi Fuaga. His jump off the line is quickest in the draft. He's so fast off that first kick step out. He's so quick. He's so fast. He's so agile, and he has great length. I really like Talisi Fuaga, but if he has long enough arms, sure, maybe the Raiders will pick him. But if he doesn't have those intangibles, I think Raiders are going to like him too much. Brock Bowers to the Saints, I don't think I've ever seen. They clearly need a tight end and they need more offensive weapons for Derek Carr, because you're going to have to commit to him because you're in cap hell and you don't really have a choice. It works, and I haven't seen it, but it weirdly works. So I don't think I hate it too much, especially with how the tackle situation has fallen. I'm not super in love with J.C. Latham, so some people might say Latham to the Saints will work. But to me, that's another Trevor Penning situation. I never liked the Trevor Penning pick when he was coming out. I thought he was garbage. I think he was overrated. I didn't think he was going to work out at all. And I think J.C. Latham there to the Saints would have been a similar type of situation. Brian Thomas, pretty high for me to the Colts. Jackson Powers Johnson to the Seahawks is pretty good. I really like JPJ. Nate Wiggins to the Jaguars. That feels like a Jaguar pick to me. Byron Murphy pairing up in LA is scary and dangerous. Cooper DeJean to the Steelers. I think what's funny is something I've told my dad, because obviously he's a Cooper DeJean lover. Cooper DeJean to me is going to play a Minkah Fitzpatrick role. He's going to play single high, but he's also going to play a lot in the box, and he's going to slot coverage a lot of tight ends and a lot of corners and a lot of slot wide receivers, because he has that ability. He's going to play a similar type of role, and going to a team that they're going to use two guys like that is a little nutty to me.
I just really like the fit with him next to Joey Porter. I don't know what it is about that, but I just, if you're going to try to turn the Saints around real quick, the Pittsburgh Steelers around real quick, I think defensive lockdown is a good way to go about it. And with the Saints, I really think Brock Bowers, as I have him drop to 15, even though I feel so strongly about him, I just feel like he's the number 2 pass catcher on the team he goes to. And I don't know what the Saints are going to do next year, if they're going to run it back with Derek Carr, or if they're going to let Jameis go for it or whatever. But having a sure-handed number 2 pass catcher and a tight end like that is just, I think, honestly, if he falls that far, I think it would be a great fit for him.
And I think he does, personally. I think Brock is not going to he's not as big as people think. He's not in terms of height, weight. He's just a little smaller for the position. I don't think people are going to – I think he's going to fall a little bit in terms of –
initially I saw him value.
Yeah, sure. I saw him going as high as, fifth to the Chargers.
Crazy.
Now I think his range is, probably somewhere around 14. I see him a lot to 18. Brock Bowers to the Bengals is something is amiss there. Don't let him fall to the Dolphins because that's something that doesn't need to happen there. But you do have Miami at the clock. Pick 21.
Pull off my offensive lineman. There should be Mr. Troy.
Oh,
Where's he at? Fatamata.
Troy Fontenot.
Yeah. Let's slot him in.
Yeah. Tackle that really probably a guard. Yeah, definitely.
Eagles are going to go cornerback here. I think everybody's like, oh, Kool-Aid, but I'm going to go with Quinyon Mitchell.
Quinyon Mitchell has all the making to be able to be a really good press corner. And he didn't really play a whole lot of press in Toledo, but his tape is so good. And he has the size and the length and the athleticism. When do the corners run? When do they do their testing?
I don't know. I'd have to double check. The thing about it, though, is everybody just like crapped all year on the Eagles defense. And so then you just go out and get the most physical corner in the draft and just say, okay, what's up? He's here to set a new type of tone. And I just really like the idea of that. Although I don't really want to help any of these teams get better. I want them all to get worse.
Pick 23 to the Texans.
I don't really know what the Texans do here. I feel like it has to be defense. Latu is tempting. Jerzon Newton is super tempting.
Especially if you're losing Grenard too. You need help on the interior defense on top of that. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna throw Jerzon Newton there for the Houston Texans. I think that's just a player that D'Amico would absolutely love.
Yeah, definitely. All right, everybody's favorite team. All right, man. What are you giving us? Running back in the first round? No way.
No, I think that you slide your boy to left tackle and you draft Tyler Guyton here to take over for Mr. Terrence Steele. Tyron is departed, and I don't really know what you're going to do at Terrence Steele at this point, but the bullshit has to stop for the Cowboys if they want to take the next step. So
for sure.
And Tyler Guyton is my love affair for the 49ers, so it's hard to send him to the Cowboys, but
Green Bay
corner, but not Kool-Aid. We're going to go with the Missouri kid. There he is.
Ennis.
Yeah,
he's dope, dude.
I don't really know what to do with Tampa Bay.
It hasn't really fell for them. I mean, if you look at the needs, especially too, I mean, it's a little bit too early for picking any guards. I guess this is where the Zach Frazier conversation could start. I wouldn't be opposed to that.
Yeah,
I think that's fine.
I mean, is it Graham Barton? Is it?
Yeah,
is it Graham Barton?
Graham Barton has 5 position flexibility. He's played all 5 spots on the line, man. He started started out playing center, played guard, played tackle this past year. Yeah, definitely.
Or is it Mims?
Marius Mims is the guy who's like an athletic freak, and he's only played like 600 snaps in college. But yeah.
Okay, so let's go Barton. Let's go Barton for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because Marius Mims is a true blue Arizona Cardinals pick.
Oh, okay, nice. I actually like Mims a lot. His tape is really good. He's not obviously super technically sound, but he just seems super natural to that team. Yeah, all right.
I just looked at what I had drafted for the Detroit Lions, and you said earlier in the podcast that he's not a first-round pick. So I'm just going to go ahead and
I'm curious on who it is, but that's pretty. You had the Buffalo Bills on the clock at pick 28. Who are we going with?
I'm trying to figure out if maybe I just missed Latu. Because I went like 45 picks earlier. No, I didn't. Oh, I love that. Okay. Buffalo Bills, Kool-Aid.
Okay. Who's this Detroit Lions back? I'm really curious about it now.
Tavondre Sweat from Texas.
Oh, that's funny.
I love that dude. He's my draft crush right now. And I know you got to go way down there, but
It's super frustrating because I really like Tavondre. I've been talking about Tavondre Sweat for a couple of weeks now. To my dad and be like, yo, Tavondre. I've been sending him videos. I'm like, yo, Tavondre, bro, look at him, man.
366
pounds,
bro.
Yep.
The
Baltimore
Ravens are going to
Ravens.
go wide receiver.
Okay.
So maybe Mitchell or maybe Troy Franklin. I'm not a big McConsky guy.
Keon Coleman, Roman Wilson, AD.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Mitchell.
Yeah. AD is probably one of my favorite wide receivers in the draft.
He's just big, and they already have Zay Flowers, you know. So
Yeah.
it's just one of those things where, all right, boys, here we go.
Everybody's least favorite team.
Go ahead and click on the offensive lineman there. Go ahead and go to Zach Frazier and go ahead and slot him in, because the 49ers honestly can take the best offensive lineman, whoever the best offensive lineman here is. Hopefully it's Tyler Guyton. And if it's not, the tackle from Arizona would be good as well. But, you know, it wasn't really, you know, you have a Trent Williams and you have a Colton McKivitz at right tackle. Colton McKivitz wasn't even really that bad. It was the inside of the offensive line that really got us eaten up. So
you guys are usually known for your offensive line, how good it is, and this past year was not as good as I think some people think it is. Kansas City Chiefs, last pick in the first round.
Yeah, we're going to go ahead and slide over to wide receiver, and we're going to take my boy. I absolutely love this man. We're going to go ahead and take Mr. Xavier Worthy.
Oh, okay.
F.
No grade? You didn't give me a grade? All right, so going over the last part
Where the
of the
hell's
picks,
my grade?
I know, you don't get a grade apparently.
You don't pay for PFF apparently.
I do pay for PFF. Ever since I full results? Nope, nothing. Interesting. So going over the picks 21 to 32, 21 to Troy Fountain out to the Miami Dolphins. I think it's a good pick again. I think he's more of a guard spot than a tackle spot. Could definitely take over Robert Hunt for sure. Quinyon Mitchell to the Eagles is interesting. You're kind of betting on, can he play press man? Has all the athleticism, has all the tools to be able to. So you're really asking yourself that question. Can he? Jazon Newton to the Texans. I think right there for the Texans, it's a luxury pick. You're taking BPA at that point, best player available. Tyler Guyton for the Cowboys. I do like Guyton. I like some guys better than him. Amarius Mims is one of the guys I like a little bit more, especially if we're talking about a guy with tools and you're going to be developing a guy. Tyler Guyton, sure, but I think Amarius Mims, I'm falling in love with a little bit more. I actually think I have Amarius Mims as a top 5 tackle on my board. Ennis Rakestraw Jr. to the Green Bay Packers. You need secondary help, and I think it's just a good fit. Graham Barton, 5 position flexibility for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Again, I already talked about Marius Mims to the Cardinals. Great pick. And then you have pick 28 to the Buffalo Bills, Kool-Aid McKinstry. Do the Bills play a lot of press man? That's kind of my question. I thought they were more of a zone scheme team. If they're playing a ton of man, then I think Kool-Aid works really, really well for him. But if they're playing zone, I don't know how well he's going to perform in that type of scheme. Tavondre Sweat to the Lions is, you haven't had a good interior defensive lineman like that in a couple of years. You have a Aleem McNeil who's really good, and then now all of a sudden you can bring in Tavondre Sweat who can absolutely stop the run, and I think that's pretty nasty. A.D. Mitchell, one of my favorites, going to the Ravens. I think it could be a pretty good fit because he's a flyer down the field. Zach Frazier to the Niners. I think Zach Frazier conversation starts around that 26, getting him at 31. Pretty damn good pick. Xavier Worthy, another flyer coming out of Texas to the Kansas City Chiefs. Another good scheme fit. Yeah, so that's mock draft 1.0.
And real quick, just to break down a couple picks here and why I went the way I did, especially the Kool-Aid pick. I think that Kool-Aid has like Trayvon Diggs level playmaker in him. And I think the Bills just need that type of guy. I think that Tre'Davious White is a huge cut candidate for them. He may not be on the team next year. And just putting a playmaker, putting a badass back there on defense. I know the Tavondre Sweat pick he's really high up there. But, to be honest with you, after today, and I told myself I wasn't going to change it, but I mean, Chop Robinson right there at 29 for Detroit with Aiden Hutchinson. You know what I mean? But to be honest with you, if you go back to the top 5 and the way it fell there, the more and more I think about it, I really just see the Patriots taking Bo Nix in the second round. And I know this isn't a 2-round mock, but if you can pair Bo Nix up with Marvin Harrison Jr., I just think you can do great things with a young quarterback when you just give him a stud wide receiver like that. So that's kind of where that's where I see the Patriots solving their their quarterback conundrum.
Right there. I think that's where the pick is. Arizona Cardinals, I think that's where the trade candidate is right there. Arizona still has a high second, and you get basically back-to-back second-round picks. Pick, 3 and 4, whatever it is. You could probably still take Amarius Mims in the second as well, and you're getting some trade compensation on top of that. So I think that's where the conversation starts. And like I said earlier in the podcast, I think a team trades into, again, we're going to no trades this mock. Maybe we will in the future. Maybe we do a multi-round mock in the future. But for mock draft 1.0 coming from Drew, no trades. Same thing with me for 2.0, probably next week. No trades. I think another team trades into the first for a Michael Penix, Bo Nix. Depends on how Nix performs at the combine.
I hope not, because I took the center. Seattle taking a center there because they're going to take Michael Penix. So,
yeah. Well, anything else to add to your mock draft?
Is that a wrap?
That's a wrap.
Is that a wrap on the podcast?
That is a wrap on the podcast.
I don't got anything. NFL related. Hopefully, we can get back to a little NBA here in the next couple of weeks once that starts heating up and spring training is in full swing with baseball. And it looks like the Giants are going to be trash this year, which is no surprise because the Dodgers are rich and they signed every free agent in the history of Major League Baseball this offseason. So
that's a wrap for us. If you stuck around to the end, absolute zero of you. But if you did, appreciate it. Yes, like
maybe this will be the last time that Jacob forces us to do this without us being live on YouTube. Who knows?
Hey, I tried to go live on YouTube. I'm honestly kind of concerned about the beginning of the podcast because it looked like the podcast was tweaking here on Riverside. I don't know what it was, but something was tweaking out, and it looked like the podcast maybe stopped and started a couple of times, and I could not tell. But I tried to go live for like the first 20 minutes, and it was 27 minutes, and it was not liking it at all.
The good news is you did the majority of the talking in the beginning, so if it cuts anything out, it'll just be you.
Yeah, so I'm not so sure about it. I'm a little nervous about it processing, so I'm hoping it comes out well. If it doesn't,
what I'm excited about
in the beginning. What's up?
Next week we're going to have a resolution on this Justin Fields situation.
Yes, and we get to talk about it again. Justin Fields, we get to get all the clips because of it.
And then we'll know what the Chicago Bears are thinking, bro.
You don't know what Chicago wants.
You don't know what Chicago's thinking. You don't know about this scheme.
Did you see the comment that said, have you watched every snap from Justin Fields?
I thought the one that said something about how, like, Caleb's floor is the same as Justin Fields or something, and I'm just like, what? Did you watch the man play? Like
that's the problem I'm having is I can bring up statistical things from Justin Fields and be like, this is why they need to take a quarterback. Oh no, it doesn't matter. Offensive line. If you actually look at NFLlines.com, which goes over offensive line, Chicago Bears is ranked as like a top 10 offensive line because they're talking about how if you see like high pressure rate, but you see like good protection wins and all this other stuff, it's usually a sign of quarterbacks holding the ball for too long. And that's why you create high pressure rates and high sack rates because the quarterback holds the ball. So if you take everything away and look at win rates and stuff, Chicago Bears end up having like a top 10 line or something like that. So I just find some of this stuff hysterical.
And the other thing is everybody's talking about Caleb and the season he has, and Caleb is obviously he's a lot of hype and he's a lot of flash, and I don't know why everybody hates that because so is Justin, but they don't even have another player going in the top 100 that's on offense. They got a safety, Jalen, he's awesome, and then however you feel about Jerry Rice's kid, I mean, I may or may not have mocked him to the 49ers in the second round, which is extremely high because he's probably a third or fourth round pick. But like we're not talking about Michael Penix that's got these big time guys coming out. We're not talking about the quarterback for Texas who's got numerous a first round pick and a second round pick wide receiver coming out. USC ain't got nobody on the offensive side of the ball coming out, and Caleb still what he did. Like, give that dude, the think about who Justin Fields had in college. You see the pictures all the time, and you're like, wait a minute, is that 5 Pro Bowlers that he was throwing the football to? Like, it's just, I don't know. I don't know how you could possibly look at what Justin Fields has done so far and just think to yourself, yeah, we're going to give this guy $200 million and extend him after next season. That's great. When you have the number 1 overall pick,
and you're doing it. You're borrowing that pick essentially. It's not even yours. You don't know if you're ever going to get back to that point.
So. Y'all are still trash enough though that you have a top 10 pick. That's the other thing.
Yep.
There's not a. Before I say this, let me double check. I don't think there's a team. Well, I mean, maybe the Cardinals. There's not a team in the top 10 that has a franchise quarterback. There's a reason you're in the top 10.
Yeah, the Chargers, but injuries.
Oh, freaking Justin Herbie. And he's all hype. And I love Herbert. I think Herbert's the truth. I think he's going to be amazing. I thought he'd be an MVP candidate this year. I am on the hype train for Herbert. But he hasn't really done anything. You know what I mean? Like, everything about him is all hype at this point. So, anyways, for all you Justin Fields lovers, if y'all want to talk some smack, I'll drop my gamer tag in the comments, and y'all can come see me on Madden. You could beat the Bears, and you could see what you got with Justin Fields. But I promise you this. It's going to go for about 110 yards, maybe a touchdown, about 6 picks, unless you just run the ball. So, and that's on all Madden settings too. So, if you guys want to show me how good Justin Fields is, come see me. Not all Jacob though; he gave up on that.
Still win,
especially against Justin Fields.
All right, well, that's a wrap on the podcast. You stuck around to the end, especially you got the end of podcast Justin Fields talks. If you stuck around to the end, we appreciate it. Make sure you stick around to next week too. See you later, you guys.
Peace.